You know, it's kind of hilarious. When I first started making StarCraft 2 videos, the vast majority of them was just simply me playing the Zerg pieces on the ladder and commentating over the gameplay. Either it was a replay of a match that I had played previously or a game that I was playing at the exact same time as I was already giving commentary to it as well. And I guess over the course of the last couple of months in particular, over like the last year or so, I've sort of started, fading away from that setup. I've started doing a lot more cast, of course. I've been doing a lot of co-op games, and I've been, focusing primarily on live gameplay over at the live stream. For those of you that have been watching the stream, you'll probably be aware of the fact that I still play StarCraft for probably about, I don't know, like, depends on the week, I guess, but anywhere between like 20 to like 40 hours a week. Kinda depends, but at the bare minimum, I play like at least 20 hours of StarCraft 2 every single week. And the funny thing is that I've seen a couple of people comment like, hey, does this guy even still play multiplayer? And yes, I most definitely do. As a matter of fact, actually, I've been playing a lot more multiplayer over the last couple of months. Currently, I got 2 accounts in Master 1. Previous season I ended up Master 1 with Random as well, but currently I got 2 accounts in Master 1 with Zerg, because that's what I've been focusing on primarily this season. And actually on the North American server, which is where one of those accounts is on, I'm currently at right around 5.4k MMR, which is actually in Grandmaster League region, with a little bit of an issue, I guess, that Grandmaster League is currently full. But regardless, I most definitely have been putting in a lot of focus on the ladder practice as well, and I figured that it's about time we go back to basics here. We focus on some good old live gameplay. So that does mean that I'm indeed playing this game at the exact same time as I'm also giving commentary to it. Now what we got right here is a Zerg versus Terran, right? So that does mean that the early game in particular is absolutely crucial. I need to try and make sure that I don't lose anything to all of the Terran's aggression. Generally speaking, I found that once we get to the middle stage of the game, I turn out to be alright, but the early game can be a little bit tricky, just because there's so many different ways that the Terran can pressure you, and in particular once they get Liberators out, Marine drops, Hellion openers, the whole shebang. All of those build orders are basically designed to slow down the Zerg's economy. Now, I did end up losing a couple of links there. Not that big of a deal, because primarily what we're looking for here is to keep all of my workers alive. So let me poke up with that Overlord on top of the ramp to see what's going on there. And I'm going to be looking to take a third here myself very, very shortly. So I'm trying to scout out right now what kind of strategy my opponent could be going for. So there's already a Hellion right there, or a Hellion setup, I guess, right there at the front of the base. So I'll still get my third here, but we have to be a little careful. I built a Roachborn initially here, because my opponent is opening up with some very aggressive playstyles right here. Going up to a whole lot of queens now as well. Reason for those is that they're very good at killing stuff, but more importantly, they're also gonna aid me in staying alive for a little while longer. My opponent is gonna be capable of doing a lot of damage here early on, so I make 2 more sets of Zerglings right here, and I'll put my queens at the front to prevent my opponent from getting into my mineral lines, while I'm still trying to squeeze out more and more and more workers. Now, I'm going to be poking once again with these overlords. I'm trying to figure out here whether or not my opponent has also got a second, a second factory out now. Or maybe even a second or a third command center. We do know that he's saving up, apparently. And there's also Marines producing right now. Okay. So no, like, mass Hellion play, or no, like, mass Cyclone Hellion kind of play right now. That does mean that I'm gonna make a few roaches, but mostly focus on droning at this point in the game. So there's 4 Hellions out right now. He's probably gonna add on a few more, but at least we got a good understanding of what will be happening right now, and more importantly, I'm feeling safe enough here to drone. I put a few links right here at the front as well, although, I was gonna do that. Although my opponent apparently is now also moving out. But that's okay, because I'm already having quite a few units here to defend against this incoming aggression. Very nice. So I'll make sure here to get myself a lair. I'll make sure to get myself double evolution chambers. And I'm still droning up. Now, ideally, I focus on Mutaling Bane. It's been my go-to strategy here for quite a little while. But, of course, sometimes you can't quite pull that off. Sometimes you have to add on a few roaches, like the game that I'm playing right here. I'm leaving my Zerglings here in the natural as well, while droning up here for that other base. Banshee's coming in. I don't think it has cloak just yet. Well, there he goes, but that's alright. Not that big of a deal. And, ooh, I barely did not manage to get that one. Very nearly. I think I got it. There we go. That's actually a big pickup there. Allowing me to kill those first units is a very big deal. Now, he's going for a 3rd CC very early on into this match, which is quite interesting. I added on a lot of workers while that was all going on. And as you can see, my roaches here at the front, as well as my buildings positioning, should allow me to be safe against all of this aggression very, very nicely. We'll start transferring towards that third base. Lair is now also finished up. I'm gonna get started here with +1 melee upgrades. We'll get a Overseer here as well. And we'll start sniping against this second Banshee now too, which I highly doubt my opponent is gonna give away. No, he's not. We get roach speed here, just in case. And really, we're just trying to keep as many of my units alive as we can. That's kind of the main goal. The longer we can keep units alive, the better this will become. Now, we have to keep in mind, my opponent is building up that economy as well, right? He's not sitting still here. So, I'm trying to look to take a 4th base now as well. And I'm basically just playing this full-on macro style. It's my favorite kind of playstyle. It's the one thing that I enjoy playing more than anything in StarCraft 2. To just simply defend against all kinds of aggression. And then overwhelm my opponent at a later stage. And it's exactly what we're pulling off so far as well. I'll go ahead now and get myself Overlord speed as well. And we'll start putting down some creep over at my opponent's bases. It's a little annoying because my opponent is still going to be capable of getting quite a bit of damage in. Even though I countered those Banshees quite nicely thus far. This may actually turn into a bit of an issue now. Because he's probably also going to fight my 4th base here, but it's okay. Did I put down the Spire? I did not just yet, but that's okay as well. Because generally speaking, we're not going to be capable of really making a whole lot out of that for the time being anyway. I'll put a Ling here at the front to scout out when my opponent is going to go for incoming aggression. And let me just make sure that all of my hatcheries are indeed hotkeyed just like that. We'll put some creep over at that base too. And you can see right now we got a really solid economy. I'm going to be capable of putting workers at that 4th base very shortly after it finishes up. And as a matter of fact, I'm kind of feeling confident enough here to put a spore up already and make one big round there. Because at this point in the game, I've got my economy set up. This is kind of the point that you're trying to get at as Zerg. If you are capable of getting your economy set up like I do right now, you're getting your upgrades and you're basically just making sure that you stay alive here without taking any kind of real economic losses. You can start being, you can simply just start cranking out so many units. So just in case here, apparently I pinged the minimap, but just in case here, I'm going to start squeezing in a few Banelings too. We'll get a few of those things, or actually, I already had 2 in my composition there, so that's fine. And now we can start adding on those mutas here as well. So I basically have workers for the remainder of this game as soon as this base is, at least reasonably well drawn up, which is exactly what it is right now. Now, of course, my opponent has still got a very solid economy here as well, right? So there's one thing we have to keep in mind. I think I want to push out if my opponent decides to sit back here, right? I think I'm going to push out right when these 3 upgrades finish up. They will all roughly finish up around the same time, and I'm going to be capable of creating a lot of units there. +2/+2 on Zerglings and Banelings, in combination with the +1 flyer upgrade for the mutas, is extremely powerful. And if my opponent is playing the way that he is so far, it seems like he's playing passive, and he's simply just trying to build up that bigger economy here himself as well, which is fine by me. I'll go ahead and set up a couple of Zerglings right over in that area. We're gonna separately hotkey these, so I can go for some run-bys if my opponent decides to be cheeky. But so far, he seems to be playing very, very passive here, which is definitely the kind of style that I prefer playing against, just because I feel like I'm probably better against it. But considering we shut down his early game pressure with ease, we probably should be okay here. So he's even already got a 4th base. Wow, alright. Oh. So here's the plan. We'll go for a run-by with these Zerglings. We'll try and see if we can potentially let them do damage, while we also surround that gold base. So there we go. Pushing into that base. We're waiting right here for him to push down there. He is indeed responding to that. And this is when we push in also with the rest of my forces. I got a lot of units here. Although it may have not been enough there. But still, you gotta keep in mind that the Lings were doing a lot of work there. And we ended up doing a lot of damage. Very shortly, I'm gonna be able to go for that big push I was talking about previously. And you can see, I actually have got a lot of units here still, even though I just ended up losing a reasonably big chunk of my army. Okay. 2-2 is done. I'll get some more Banes. I'll separately hotkey these as well. And we're pushing in now. And my opponent is just unsearching his tanks. We're rolling through. Rolling, rolling, rolling. Target firing down the Medivacs here as well with the remainder of my army. But my opponent got absolutely thrown off guard. And he just simply leaves the game right then and there. Now here we are in the replay. And let me try and show you exactly the reason why we ended up getting such an advantage, okay? So basically this Terran's early game here, the strategy that he was going for with both the Hellions as well as the Benjis was entirely meant to try and slow down the Zerg. He spent a lot of early game resources on units that ended up doing very, very little. I mean, I don't think the Hellions killed a single thing. Maybe they killed a couple of Zerglings, but I'm pretty sure we got those shut down by simply just positioning units right here and buildings in a proper position. But on top of that, I mean, the first Benji got sniped, the second one did get microed and did pick up a few kills, but at that point I already had so many workers and we just simply could easily replace the ones that we lost. So what I generally speaking look at whenever I am playing a match, right, and I'm not entirely sure what happened here, although I guess I do in this particular instance, is the worker count. You need to make sure that you have more workers as the Zerg player than pretty much any of the other races. It's all a game of drones, and in the game of drones you win or you die, right? I've said that many times before, but it's true. Like, if you have more workers than your opponent, you're gonna be in a great position. So this first little Overlord poke in here was a very, very calculated one, okay? The second one right here in the main as well. What I saw here was, first off, you know, of course, that factory producing something. So I knew it basically came down to two different kinds of builds. The first one being, you know, Mass Hellion. The second one being, like, Hellion Cyclone. Then poking in with second Overlord verified to me that there was also a barracks producing additional Marines. Now, for playing a lot of random myself and going for a lot of Cyclone Hellion-based openers, I know very well that if you go double factory with 2 reactors and you're trying to pump out Cyclones and Hellions, you're not capable of producing any Marines. You just simply do not have the economy. As a matter of fact, like, if you play that style, if you play the double factory style as the Terran player, you need to, like, cut out SCVs in order to continuously produce. So there's no way, you know, that he's gonna, you know, make Marines while that is going on. So verifying that and getting shot at by this Overlord is a big deal, because I saw it being produced right there. Now, since I was commentating and talking and whatnot at the same time, it's a little more difficult to analyze exactly what's going on. But besides, you know, the Hellion opener with Cyclone support, there's also, of course, the Banshee follow-up. Now, in this particular instance, you could see that I saw the Overlords, or rather the Banshee, move across the map reasonably early on. Yeah, we do snipe those units very, very nicely. Buildings right here at the front will create a bit of a choke, so the Hellions can't really go in there. Now, I see the Banshee move across the map here, and I end up putting down a couple of spores, and we snipe that thing with 3 workers going down. And while this is going on, right, I have basically verified exactly the amount of units that my opponent got. I mean, he's got about 6 Hellions, 2 Banshees, and maybe a handful of Marines. So I don't need to work on any kind of additional, like, army here myself. I can spend pretty much the vast majority of my units here on just simply drone production, or vast majority of my resources. And you can see that right here in the Harvester count. So my opponent actually picks up quite a few more kills here with these Banshees. I think he even maybe gets himself another one here as well. But I'm just powering out workers. I'm trying to establish that big economy. And even though I scouted out that my opponent went for that 3rd CC, I know very well that, you know, I've got larva. I can make a lot of workers all at once. And right when that fort base finishes up, I go for my final, well, actually, my final round of workers here, I'm pretty sure. Actually, they may have already been out, but regardless, no, they're actually, yeah, there they go. 12 more workers here being added on. Actually, maybe a little bit over the top, but regardless, you can see I'm going up here to a very substantial amount of workers, and that's me completely finished with droning for the remainder of the game. I know I add on a few more workers here and there, or rather a few more buildings here and there as well, so that will, you know, slowly reduce the amount of workers that I got. But at this point, I can power out a stupid amount of army. So supply-wise, it's actually really even. That's the funny part here, I guess, as well, because we have, you know, done a pretty solid job at macro as it is, but supply-wise, it's very, very even. The main reason for that is the fact that my opponent managed to, you know, establish that 3rd really early on, and he also started going for a 4th. But the thing is, once you get to this point, and you're going Mutaling Bane, right? So notice here, I'm not going up to a Hive, I'm not going up to Ultralisk, I'm not going up to Infestor. I'm just playing Mutaling Bane at +2/+2, but +1 flyer attacks here as well very shortly on those Mutalisk. I can pump out a stupid amount of units as long as I'm hitting my Queen Injects. And that's exactly what I'm trying to do here. So first off, this little run by here kills a lot of SCVs in a very short amount of time, which worked very nicely. Then we try and crash in here, potentially go for some advantages here. And even though my opponent holds that initial bit of aggression very nicely, the second wave, the one that I was planning to go for, you can see these upgrades are just about to finish up. That second wave is going to do a stupid amount of damage. Because I know he doesn't have the planetary done just yet. I know I'm gonna be capable of moving forward here, and the fact of the matter is that my opponent looked away from that fight for just a split second as well, but even though that was the case, there was no way that he would be able to stop my army just from the, you know, the sheer amount of stuff, the sheer amount of units that we ended up creating. Now, if, for whatever reason, this push right here would not do crippling amounts of damage, right, which can happen in many of your games, I would have switched out to a Ultralisk Cavern here eventually, but you do have to keep in mind, if you play something like this, where you're focusing on +2/+2 and +1 flyer attacks, you basically slow down like the Ultralisk advancements for about a good couple of minutes, so you need to be very careful in that sense. Creep threat looked pretty reasonable here, probably wanted to be pushing up this ramp as well, just to sort of keep track of what is going on. Do have Overlords checking out the other fort bases, and I did also have one checking out the gold base, to at least keep vision of my opponent's army and my opponent's my opponent's, you know, economy movement, I guess, in that sense, and... you know, just by simply keeping track of that and not taking a whole lot of losses in the early game, life turned out to be pretty straightforward. Now, for those of you curious about my hotkey positioning during those great fights, because I do get quite a few questions about that, let me just back up for just a bit and let me try and explain that to you real quick. So the way I got this one set up, as you can see right at this big engagement, hotkey number 1 is going to be my Mutalisk. My Mutalisk are tasked to not first off fight Marines, if we can at all avoid that. But the perfect micro at Mutalisk would be to shift click between the siege tanks first and foremost, and then between all of the medevacs, okay? The Zerglings and the Banelings are, you know, tasked to kill all of the rest of the army. So the reason why I'm engaging like this is to try and set up a bit of a surround, you know? Move across the map. Of course, with my opponent at Widow Mines, I needed to be a little bit more careful, but considering the amount of siege tanks that I saw earlier, I knew that that probably wasn't going to be the case. So hotkey 1 is indeed going to be the Mutas. Hotkey 2 is going to be my Zerglings, my Banelings, and also the Ravagers and Roaches that are left over. Hotkey 3 is going to be a separate hotkey where my Banelings are a second time hotkeyed as well. So hotkey 2 includes all of the Banelings, hotkey 3 includes as many of the Banes as I could find as well. The reason for that is that I can first off like shift click between my Mutalisks, you know, to target fire down the siege tanks and then also the medevacs. The second part of the Zerglings and the Banelings is to attack move as well and to try and dodge any kind of Widow Mines. But then as soon as I attack move and I'm in a proper position with those, I will hit number 3, which is my separate number 3. That's 5, Lowko. Number 3 with my hotkeys, and I will simply move command my Banelings into wherever they are needed the most. And in this instance, that's gonna be that juicy clump of Marines. And basically whatever else I could find in my opponent. You can see he just simply wasn't paying attention to his army there. He got thrown off by that Zergling run by I did. Look, he was panicking a little right there, and eventually he just simply gets overthrown right then and there. It's a very clean match. I actually should do these more often. I mean, I really enjoy talking about the Zerg and like StarCraft 2 in general. But I hope you enjoyed watching this video. Let me know down below if you would like to see more videos like this one. I am definitely not opposed to the idea. I guess it's just something that I haven't been doing as much of as of late. Anyway, let me know down below what your thoughts are. Other than that, I want to thank you for watching. Have an amazing day. Do not forget to smile, alright? And I will see you in the next one.